Have you ever had somebody in your life who can get a reaction out of you faster than anyone else? I mean, you love them, you would do anything for them, but somehow one little comment or one tone of voice or a look, and suddenly you're irritated and you're frustrated. I want you to think about that person just for a minute. Because Saturday morning, before I left for a funeral, I had an interaction with my daughter. And it made me think, oh my God, today is going to be a disaster. And here's what's interesting. It wasn't. And by the end of this weekend, I was sitting here thinking about how differently everything could have turned out. And I think one little decision I made taught me something about communication, relationships, and knowing when not to react. So I want to tell you what happened, okay? But while I'm telling you my story, I want you to think about that person in your life, because this isn't really just about me and my daughter. It's about what happens when we decide that everything doesn't require a response. Hey everybody, welcome back to Starting Over with Cheri. If you're new here, I'm Cheri, I'm 62, and this channel is about what it looks like to start over. Not because everything in your life is falling apart, but because I believe we're never too old to look at ourselves and say, maybe I can do this differently. And one of the things I've been working on lately is communication, right? I've talked about learning when to speak, learning when to be quiet, learning when I'm quiet because I'm actually regulating myself versus being quiet because I feel like nobody is going to hear me anyway. Well, apparently life heard me talking, because life said, okay, Cheri, let's see if you really mean it. And this weekend gave me a test. Okay, so Saturday morning was the funeral, and I was at Brandy's house. Brandy's my niece. There were already a lot of emotions surrounding the day. And before the funeral, my daughter was a little snippy with me. She was supposed to come pick me up. I'm not going to get into exactly what was said, because this isn't about putting my daughter's business on YouTube. That's not the point of this story, okay? The point is what happened inside of me, because I could feel myself getting irritated. You know that feeling, somebody says something, and technically, maybe it's not even that big, but it's the tone, or maybe there's history attached to it. So you're not only reacting to what they just said, you're reacting to the last 10 things. And I thought, here we go. Sometimes with your adult children, relationships can be complicated. You love each other, but you also know each other's buttons, right? They know yours. You know theirs. And sometimes it can feel like you're walking on eggshells. Well, at least for me, it feels like that. Sometimes I'm walking on eggshells. So here's where it got interesting. I noticed that after the interaction with my daughter, I was getting snippy with the live-in aid, right? And I had to catch myself, because wait a minute, she wasn't the person that I was upset with. Have you ever done that? You're irritated with your spouse, and then the cashier moves too slowly, and suddenly you're irritated with the cashier. I'm just using the cashier as an example. Your boss may get on your nerves. You come home, you snap at your kids, you snap at your spouse. You know, your mother says something, then somebody else calls you, and you're short with them. They didn't cause the mood. They just happened to encounter you while you're carrying it. And that's what I was doing. I was carrying one interaction into another. And I had to recognize, and I had to tell myself to stop. Cheri, stop. Because now I am allowing somebody else's mood or my reaction to somebody else's mood, my daughter, to determine how I treat everyone else. And that's not who I want to be. Okay, so here's the second problem. So we get to the funeral, right? My son wasn't going to attend the funeral. He was just going to view the body and leave and not stay for the service. And so he wanted to pick me up after viewing the body, right? So that I could come back to his house and, spend time with him and my grandchildren. And also he wanted to take his wife out. So I was going to babysit. And listen, I wanted to go, right? My grandchildren were there. I don't get to see them every day because they live in New Jersey. I live in California, right? So, of course, I wanted to go, right? But I also felt conflicted because I came to New Jersey for the funeral. There was a repast after the funeral, and I felt that I should really attend the repast, right? But at the same time, I wanted to spend some time with my grandchildren. So now I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? Do I leave and go see my grandchildren, or do I stay for the repast? How am I going to get to my son's house after, afterwards? I was thinking about that because my son lives an hour away, right? And meanwhile, my daughter, with her snippy attitude, right? We had already had our little tension earlier in the day, right? This is exactly the kind of situation where I could have started pushing. What are we doing? Are you staying? Can you take me? But I came all this way. Why are we so late? I could have had plenty to say. And believe me, I had thoughts. But I decided, don't do it. Just leave it alone. And you know what? I want to stop here because I don't want somebody or someone who's watching this to misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying you should allow somebody to disrespect you. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have boundaries. I'm not saying you should never speak up for yourself. There are absolutely times when we need to say something. But there are also those times, those little moments where if we're being truthful with ourselves, we know responding probably isn't going to solve anything, right? It's going to turn a 30-second irritation into a 3-hour argument. So now I've started asking myself, does this need a response? Does it need a response right now? And will what I say or what I'm about to say make the situation better? That's different from silencing yourself. That's choosing your response. Remember, Saturday morning, I thought this day was going to be a disaster, right? My daughter had been a little snippy. I was irritated. I'd already caught myself carrying that irritation over to somebody else who was, the living aid. And now I didn't know how the rest of the day was going to turn out or going to work, right? But I didn't push. I didn't complain. I didn't keep bringing it up. And my daughter softened, right, on her own. She decided, in the service, she decided that she was going to stay for the service and that she was going to go to the repast. And she actually went with me. And then she decided that afterwards she would drive me all the way to my son's house, who lived an hour away. I didn't have to argue her into it. I didn't have to make her feel guilty. I didn't have to win anything. She just decided. And here's something that I want to be careful about, right? I am not going to sit here and claim that because I kept quiet, I changed my daughter. No, she's responsible for her choices. I'm responsible for mine. But I know one thing for certain. I didn't add another argument to the situation. And sometimes that's enough. And you know what happened after that? We had a wonderful time. My daughter came with me to my son's house, and she stayed for a while, right? And I got time to spend with my son, my daughter-in-law, and my grandchildren. And Grandma came out. I spoiled those babies. I did their hair. My son and his wife, right, they decided to go out Saturday night. So they left me with the girls, right? Now, they left instructions, right? I heard the instructions and I understood the instructions. And I pretty much ignored the instructions. My granddaughters, they had a blast, and so did I. I let them do exactly what they wanted to do. My oldest granddaughter, she's like, Grandma Riri, can we have a snack? Now, it was already like almost 9 o'clock. I was like, okay, where are the snacks? So she showed me where the snacks were. Did I give my grandbabies a snack at 9 o'clock at night? Yes, I did. They had a blast because I don't know when I'm going to see them again. And their mom and dad was out having a ball, having a blast, right? It is what it is. So we laughed. I got them ready for bed. I tucked them in. I read them a story. They went to sleep and I went back downstairs and watched TV and just had some me time. And I just really enjoyed myself, right? So this morning they woke up. My daughter-in-law made breakfast. And then we went swimming because I brought my bathing suit because something told me they might want to go swimming. They might want to get in the pool, right? Because my son, they have a pool, right? So we went swimming, we laughed, we spent more time together. It was just so awesome. You know, not perfect, nothing's always perfect, but it was, you know, it was a picture perfect family weekend. It was good. And sometimes good is just enough. So towards the end, right, when it's time for me to go home, right, because I come back, not home, back to Brandy's house, right, my little grandchildren started talking about wanting me to stay. And my daughter-in-law was like, well, can you come back for the summer, right? And I would love to spend time with them. I would love to spend the summertime with them. But realistically, I can't just pick up and work remotely from New Jersey for an entire summer. My job doesn't work that way. But hearing them say that, it just meant something to me. It meant a lot to me. Because Saturday morning, I was thinking, this is going to be a disaster. This weekend is going to be a mess. And by Sunday, I'm in a swimming pool with my grandchildren, and they're asking me to come back and spend the summer with them. So think about how different those two moments are. You know, and so that made me wonder, right? How many times do we walk into a situation already expecting for it to go badly? Maybe because of history, maybe because we've argued with that person before, right? And maybe because we know their personality. Maybe because they know exactly how to push our buttons, right? And before anything has even really happened, right, we're bracing ourselves. Sometimes we may even start reacting to the argument we think is coming, right? And then we help create the very experience that we're afraid of having. That hit me this weekend because I could have done that Saturday. I could have decided at 9 o'clock in the morning that the whole day was ruined. Instead, I gave the day a chance to become something else, and it did. So let's make this about you. So you remember that person I asked you to think about at the beginning of this video? The one who can get a reaction out of you faster than anyone else. I want you to try something the next time it happens to you. Before you respond, ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, does this actually need a response? Because not everything does. The second question is, does it need a response right away? Because maybe it does need to be discussed, but perhaps not while everyone is irritated. And the third question is, ask yourself, will what I'm about to say help improve the situation? Because that's the big one. Because sometimes I'm not responding because I think it's going to help, right? I'm responding because I want you to know that you're wrong and I'm right. And I know I am not the only person who has done that. Some of you have probably done it as well. So here is my challenge for you. And I'm doing this right along with you. This week, right? Notice one moment when you normally would react. Just one. Pause, right? You don't have to swallow your feelings or your pride, right? You don't have to become a doormat. You don't have to accept disrespect. Just pause long enough to decide whether this particular thing deserves your energy. And it genuinely needs to be, and if it genuinely needs to be addressed, address it. But if it doesn't, try letting that one thing go and see what happens. Maybe nothing changes, right? Maybe the other person still behaves exactly the same. But here's what will be different, right? You chose your response instead of giving someone else control of it. And that brings me to today's starting over moment. Sometimes starting over isn't about changing the other person, right? Sometimes it's changing what you bring into the interaction, right? I'm learning that knowing when to speak is important, but knowing when not to speak can be just as powerful. And I'm still learning. I'm going to mess things up sometimes, right? There will absolutely be another day when somebody says something and Cheri responds before Cheri remembers this entire video, right? Because I will, because I'm just being honest, right? But you know what? That's what starting over is. You don't have to master something before you begin practicing it, right? You notice, you practice, you mess up, you try again. And little by little, hopefully you get better. So, Saturday morning, I thought I knew, right, how this weekend was going to go. I was wrong. I could have reacted to every little thing. I could have carried my irritation from person to person, right? I could have spent the day keeping score. Instead, somewhere along the way, right, I decided that everything doesn't need and the weekend that I thought might be a disaster ended with me swimming with my grandchildren, laughing, enjoying my family, right, and learning those babies, not learning, and hearing those babies ask their grandma to come back for the summer. I'll take that ending. So here's my question for you. Is there something you're reacting to right now that might not actually deserve a reaction? Think about it. And if you've ever had a situation completely turned around because you chose not to engage, tell me about that in the comments. I really want to hear your stories, right? Because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one learning this lesson. And if you're starting over in some area of your life, right, subscribe and come along with me. We're figuring this out together. I'm Cheri. This is Starting Over with Cheri. And remember, choose consistency over perfection. I will see you in the next video.